For the past 4 centuries, Western science and philosophy have run entirely on a single, silent operating system. It's known as Cartesian dualism, a strict division of reality into 2 camps: human consciousness as observer and the physical world as object. This detached framework allowed us to measure and manipulate our environment, providing the exact psychological distance required to launch modern physics. But this exactitude comes with a glaring paradox. While dualism successfully launched the scientific method, it completely fails to describe actual, lived human experience. We do not move through ordinary life as detached minds hovering above physical bodies, passively inferring the existence of the world around us. We simply live in it. In 1927, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger published a book called Being and Time. It was a complete rejection of the 400-year-old Cartesian framework. Heidegger realized the entire academic tradition was fixated on the wrong problem. It was obsessed with epistemology, the puzzle of how a detached mind can know the outside world, when it should have been asking about ontology, what it actually means to exist within that world in the first place. To understand Heidegger's model, we have to stop proposing abstract puzzles of perception and return to pure, concrete description. His baseline observation is that we are embedded in reality long before asking scientific questions. He called this being in the world. We are not ghosts observing a machine, but participatory entities inextricably woven into the surrounding geometry. Your ticket of admission to reality does not require you to solve the riddle of how you perceive it. Our primary, unshakable reality is simply waking up to find ourselves already here, participating in the whole structure. But finding ourselves embedded in reality is not a neutral state. We do not volunteer for the assignment. Heidegger uses the term Geworfenheit, which translates literally to thrownness. We are flung into existence without our permission. You didn't select your parents, didn't choose your genetic structure, your physical location, or exact moment in history. You inherit these variables upon impact. It's no coincidence this existential philosophy exploded into mainstream European culture following the unchosen horrors of the Second World War and the Nazi occupation. This contingent, factual base is the non-negotiable bedrock. It is the load we take upon ourselves to fashion a life. Human existence cannot be static. We are ongoing creatures, forced to project ourselves out of our past and into an open future. We construct clock time precisely because our present holds meaning only as a vehicle moving toward that possible future. Human life is a constant, forward-moving task built entirely on top of a roll of the dice. Yet this continuous projection into the future inevitably encounters an absolute limit in the topology. We usually treat death as a public fact. It is a biological event out in the world, an obituary we read about someone else. But your own death will never be a fact in the world for you. You will never read your own obituary. Death is not an experience you live through. In Heidegger's structural architecture, death is an intrinsic, ever-present boundary. It is, in his words, the possibility which cancels all my possibilities. Encountering this unavoidable limit forces a severe philosophical reckoning. Heidegger shared this perspective with thinkers like Leo Tolstoy. Since the absolute limit exists, the individual is forced to ask what meaning their current life actually holds. When confronted with the cancellation of all future projection, we are left with 2 choices: scurry away from it in terror or face it directly. Death is not merely an endpoint waiting in the distance. It is the ultimate framing device that gives immediate urgency, weight, and shape to every choice you make today. Modern, technologically affluent societies tend to treat anxiety as a glitch in the system, a pathology to be cured with the right therapy session or eliminated with a pill. Heidegger views anxiety differently. It is mathematically necessitated by our architecture. Anxiety is simply the sheer contingency of our thrownness, vibrating against the unmoving wall of our finitude. To cope with this tension, we rely on alienation. We avert our eyes from the stark boundary of our existence and bury ourselves in the impersonal, social self. We hide inside our professional personas, our social roles, and the endless, trendy distractions provided by highly complex urban environments. This structural view of human limitation stands in sharp contrast to the most famous existentialist of the 20th century, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre's existentialism is essentially Cartesian. He envisions two isolated consciousnesses engaged in a dizzying melodrama of total liberty. For Sartre, you possess the absolute, vertiginous freedom to hurl yourself off a cliff at any given second. Heidegger rejects this aggressive, absolute freedom. His version of freedom is much quieter. It is tightly bound by our unchosen circumstances and genetics. Attempting to drug away our anxiety or pretending we possess the absolute liberty to be anything we want are both simply desperate evasions. They are attempts to run away from the inescapable structure of our own existence. This dynamic scales up. The individual's psychological evasions mirror the historical trajectory of Western civilization. The Cartesian split catalyzed an aggressive will to power, a drive for total technological mastery that transformed the world into an object of human will. Long before the Industrial Revolution, thinkers like Francis Bacon established the operating paradigm of new science. Nature is a resource to be interrogated and dominated. Bacon's foundational ethos was brutally clear. We must put nature to the rack to compel it to answer our questions. We stopped viewing ourselves as participants in an environment and began treating the earth entirely as an instrument to be willed, stressed, and controlled for energy extraction. 400 years of putting nature to the rack successfully yielded the highly complex, air-conditioned society we live in today. But it cost us our connection to the whole. We severed ourselves entirely from our cosmic roots. The ultimate consequence of this Faustian drive became visible in the 20th century. By mastering the atom, mankind built the technological capacity to completely self-destruct. Heidegger warned that it is useless to simply protest or be against technology. Our civilization is irrevocably committed to the gamble. If we remove the machines, the structure collapses. Instead, the later Heidegger proposed an alternative to the Cartesian drive for mastery. He argued for a radical shift toward receptivity. To explain this, he points to poetry. A poet cannot forcefully will a poem into existence. They must quiet their resistance and become a vessel. True freedom is not forceful domination. It is abandoning the need to compel and simply letting truth happen. If we are to survive the technical complexes we have built, we must drop the 400-year-old Cartesian illusion that we stand above the world as its masters and embrace the profound, quiet vulnerability of actually living inside it.